Hi, I'm Nikki, your host, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to this episode of the Eleve Academy podcast. At Eleve Academy, we're not just launching another educational program. We're creating a movement. Today's students deserve flexibility and real-world preparation, and that's exactly what we're building. Our high school curriculum is free, globally conscious, and built to foster creativity, critical thinking, and practical skills. We're also working towards institutions like College Board, so students everywhere can use our program towards their futures. But big ideas need big and like bold collaborators. And that's where you
Mhm.
come in. Whether you're an educator or a student, we'd love to help to work with you so you can help us reshape the education system for the better. Now, for today's guest, Khadicha, someone who's been accepted into Columbia University recently. Her story is one of determination, focus, and compassion, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Do you have any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay, perfect. So, getting into Columbia is an amazing achievement. Can you walk us through that process? Like, what were the biggest challenges you faced on your application journey?
So I applied to Columbia University through the QuestBridge application, and QuestBridge is kind of notorious for having like one of the more difficult applications compared to like Common App Coalition, like the California schools, because of how many supplementals you have to write, like the amount of letter of recommendations, and then also you have to get accepted into the QuestBridge program to get accepted into the university. So you have to kind of go through that door first. So I would say like the most difficult part for me was definitely applying with like the essays, writing so many supplemental essays counting like including Columbia's essays that I wrote because I ranked Columbia first. So like I was really nervous about the Columbia essays specifically and like the Questbridge supplementals that you have to write just to get into Questbridge. It's around like 10 to like 13, I think, that I wrote. So that was very difficult. And also a lot of these essays are kind of vague and they kind of overlap. So you have to have a different story for each. So I feel like that was also kind of something that I had to reframe my thinking and think of myself as having like little bubbles that I have to show in different essays.
Yeah, that's great. So, how do you find the balance between schools, extracurriculars, and your personal life? Like, what strategies help you manage everything?
I have kind of a principle that I go by that I don't do homework on weekends. And on weekends, I really focus on extracurriculars. So some extracurriculars are after school, like Safe Club, STEM Seeds, which are my nonprofits, I have to do after school. And then research is usually, I mean, like researchers don't like to work on weekends, so you have to meet with their schedule on weekdays. But for like everything else, like planning these, figuring out my schedule, I do on weekends. If I do have homework or if like I have a test on Monday, I'll work on that from 5 p.m. So like I made like a kind of like a rule in my head. Sundays from 5 p.m. to like 10 p.m. That's whenever I can do studying for a Monday test or doing homework or Friday after school because Friday isn't a weekend. So that's kind of how I structure my brain. So mostly all of Saturday and Sunday is when I would like recommend to just save for extra stuff because it is an extracurricular. It's not a curricular need.
I think that's really great. Were there any key moments or experiences during high school that helped shape your path towards Columbia?
I would say more before high school and then also within it as well. But I've always been very passionate about city and then also very passionate about research. And those are like the two things that I found very connected with Columbia. I actually lived in New York City when I first immigrated to America because of like the ports there like obviously.
Mhm.
But I lived in New York City when I first immigrated for like a year, and then I would like revisit every couple of years because I had a lot of friends and family. There's a very big Uzbek population in New York City, and I'm Uzbek, so because of like the immigrants. So I would just like visit friends, family, stuff like that. And I always felt so connected, like seeing so many people like me. Like in Pittsburgh, there isn't a crazy population of Uzbeks or Central Asians in general. So I felt community and I just loved seeing like the skyscrapers. Like it reminded me of like opportunity and community. So that was something that I felt throughout high school and before high school, obviously. And then for research, in eighth grade, my younger brother passed away to sepsis because of my mother's autoimmune disease. Kind of like he just didn't get the nutrients and like vitamins he needed in the belly. So when he was born, his organs started failing due to sepsis. And that was because of my mom's autoimmune disease. 80% of autoimmune disease patients are female. And I've always been very angry and very fueled that this mystery of the sex bias of autoimmune disease is still not solved. 80% of autoimmune diseases. So that means that so many babies, so many mothers are suffering, so many women in general are going through this health disparity, and nobody's really working that much to solve it except for women, obviously.
Hmm.
So I felt that kind of drive to research this, and I started research at the University of Pittsburgh, led to CMU, then Wake Forest, and I was just like thinking, like, what is university that has a very big focus in sex biases in research, very big focus in health disparities in research, and also just a big focus in research. And I stumbled upon like so many articles that have to do with autoimmune diseases and sex bias that was done at Columbia. And I was like, maybe this is a sign. Like I think also some advice I would give to anybody who's thinking of what college to choose is look at those little signs and like genuinely think of it as like God or whatever sending you like little messages. And that's like a really good way to find out what university you go to. And then also I did some research kind of to do with autoimmune diseases, more likely to do with like genetic diseases. And I tried to apply game theory, which is the mathematics of games, to genetic science. And I did not find one lab in the entire world that did anything kind of similar to this, except at Columbia. Like I found one article that was similar to the research I was doing by I think Dr. Christos Papadimitriou, and I just thought that was super interesting. And then I wrote about that in my YS essay, and I got in. So I think that's also something if you are interested in research or a very, very niche topic of whatever your major is, try your best to find a professor at your dream university that is doing something anything similar to that, and then write that in your YS. And then even you could reach out to them and do whatever you want. But that's a good way of indicating to colleges that you actually want to go there.
Yeah, I see you're very passionate. You have a very good reason of wanting to go to Colombia. And I'm also really sorry about your
Of
brother.
course, yeah. Thank you.
So you're from Uzbekistan?
Mhm.
Did you, when you lived in Uzbekistan, did you ever see yourself like coming this far, going to America and getting into Colombia?
So I was a couple months old when I immigrated from Uzbekistan, so I didn't really
Oh.
get to like see that. But my older
Mm.
sister was like 3 years old when she immigrated, and she tells me like all like she actually has memories of like the immigration process. She tells me a lot of stories, and also whenever you first immigrate, you're usually very, very low income, very poor. So I had to
Mhm.
kind of live through that like classic immigrant story, and I think that was kind of what really affected me mentally. Like I
Mhm.
never had this like dream of going to a big college. Like I kind of knew I was going to go to college, but it was always like community college,
Mhm.
local college, never anything too far. So I think it was such a gradual story, and I feel like a lot of people think that people that get into Ivy Leagues or higher institutions, they have like a college counselor or someone to help them from freshman year. But I only started to even go into clubs or activities sophomore year. It was so gradual and it was never predetermined or predestined for me. Like this was just something that I just think was so like almost accidental. It was something that I wasn't striving for. It just happened to like come to me whenever I started working harder.
That's great. Have you ever felt like stuck or discouraged? Like, how did you find motivation to keep pushing?
I think that that is such a hard question because
Mhm.
I like like I just said, like I didn't really want to go to an Ivy League or go to
Mhm.
like a more prestigious institution until I was like junior year summer. I got accepted into this program at CMU where you like it's actually like a national program. So I was the only one from Pittsburgh and it's
Mhm.
a Pittsburgh program. So people from like California and Chicago and everywhere came and everybody was like, I'm going to this Ivy League. Like I want to go to an Ivy League. And I just wanted to go to University of Pittsburgh or CMU, just like a local college, like I said. And it was just kind of weird to see that like everybody was striving towards a goal and I was doing all of this extracurricular, all of this work just because, like kind of just because I was passionate. Like I didn't really have an end goal and I didn't really think of it as like checking things off of a list. It was just stuff that I loved doing. So it was interesting to see like that all the things I was doing was actually impressive and that it wasn't really like I didn't need motivation to do any of these things because I just did it because I loved it and it felt like a hobby more. So I feel like those things that I were doing, I didn't have to feel motivated, which is kind of hard to say because I know a lot of people are listening to this podcast or want to go to Ivy Leagues and do things to go to Ivy Leagues. So I feel like I wouldn't be the best person, but I would say like from my perspective, just to love what you're doing and I think motivation will just follow you.
Okay, perfect. So, as someone who's successfully navigated the competitive college application process, what's one piece of advice you would give to like students feeling overwhelmed?
With college applications.
Yeah.
I would say that you don't need to apply to as many, sorry, one second. You do not need to apply to as many colleges as you think you do. I applied to
Mhm.
like so many, and then I ED'd to Columbia through Questbridge, and then it was like already ended. And I was like, I don't even need this huge list. So I would say calm down, choose one good ED school. Like I would not waste your ED. I say this to all juniors, all sophomores, like all of my underclassmen friends, to not waste your ED, even if you like, if you don't have a school you really love and you would genuinely regret it, obviously go ahead, don't use it. But the ED is such a special part of the college applications. Because you're done, like you're done by December and you get
Mhm.
to just like calm down. And then also you get to put all your energy into one school. And when you're putting all your energy into one school and writing those supplementals for that school and figuring out everything about that school, why yes, whatever, you learn a lot about the college application process and you know kind of the structure that the school and other schools are going to want to go by. So like when I applied to Columbia, I knew how to write the supplementals well, I knew how to research a school, and then I could apply that to other schools as well if I didn't get in. And like that's kind of how I thought of it.
Okay, that's great. So, as you know, we're a part of Eleve Academy. We're creating a flexible, personalized curriculum that works for immigrants, people that aren't as wealthy, and others. Do you think something
Mhm.
like this would have helped you in your college journey?
Yeah, so I this like program, the Eleve Academy, is kind of similar to like the program I talked about with CMU, where
Mhm.
it's a free program. So it was like everyone like I was like national, and it was for like immigrants, first gen, low income students, and they really went in depth about like college applications and then also about like research opportunities. So at this program, you could learn about any niches. You could do like I said, like I learned game theory there. You could do like game theory, comp bio, cell biology, like anything that you really wanted. Like you basically just say what you're interested in and go into it. And that is not an opportunity low income and immigrant students to get often. Like we don't really have those connections or we don't have the finances to be able to do that. So I really think that if I didn't have the SAMS, that's what it's called, the SAMS program at CMU, I wouldn't have felt prepared to apply to like to do college applications. I wouldn't have prepared to feel prepared to apply to Columbia. So I think that like programs like this, similar to SAMS, really targeting low income and marginalized communities is what would be helpful, and really targeting college applications and research, those two main hubs.
Okay, great. So, what are your thoughts on the current education system? Like, do you see room for improvement?
Feel like I hear a lot. I understand that there are a lot of problems with the education system, but I still feel like it is working, and it's like if it's not broken, don't fix it. Like I feel like standardized testing and taking tests, it's not a negative thing the way that people kind of put it out to be. I think that that is a good way of like measuring if you are growing. However, I do think that there needs to be more equity in the education system. There needs to be sometimes, in some cases, not in like middle school or elementary school, because that's when you need to learn independence, but in high school settings and college settings, there needs to be some personal connections. There needs to be some individual curriculum, some individual learning experiences. I learned more at a research lab at University of Pittsburgh when it was one-on-one with a professor than I did in like 3 years that I took, or 2 years that I took biology in high school. So maybe, yeah, three, it was three. But so I feel like I learned a lot more just like talking to a professor one-on-one than I did like sitting 3 years straight. So I feel like, and I always say research, like I said earlier, like college experiences and research. I really feel like what needs to be more prominent in the education system is those one-on-one professor research meetings, like learning what research is and doing research, stuff like that, I think is very important.
Okay, thank you. So, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would you have given?
I feel like this is such a cliche and everyone says it, but probably just to slow down and calm down and not be like so worried and stressed. I would say that specifically to my junior year self and then those years before, to have more faith and confidence in myself. Um, like imposter syndrome is very common in marginalized communities, and freshmen to like I think the reason why I never thought an Ivy League was so out of reach, and it wasn't even something that I thought about even a little bit, was because like I mean, what's a Uzbek girl trying to get into an Ivy League for? Like I just never thought it was like there's just no point. Like what am I trying to do here? And I think junior year when I saw so many low income, so many immigrants around me, um, that just wanted to get into Ivy Leagues and they were so determined and excited for it, I was like, that could be me as well. So just to broaden your horizon, be confident, and then also like later on, junior year, seeing everyone around you having it figured out and you don't, just to calm down because it'll come to you.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So, Now that you're headed to Colombia, what's next for you? What do you want to accomplish there, and how do you see your education shaping your future?
So like the same thing that I said, like research is really important to me. I really want to research with the professors that I mentioned, um, really specifically about the sex bias of autoimmune disease, and then also looking at computational biology and like genetics essentially with game theory. So like looking at genetics as like a game, I think is cool. And then like that like really weird research topics. So I feel like if you want to go into research, going to Ivy Leagues is great because there's so much going on all the time. And then also, I have like nonprofits that I work with. I want to try to expand them and work on them as well, make them more professional and formidable at these like universities as well because like all the resources that comes with, but as well, I want to do like a business or like a nonprofit management minor or something like that because I feel like it's really important to not only go into your like major, not only go into like a career, but also have something kind of as a backup, but some other more applicable knowledge to like street world or whatever you'd say.
Mhm. Okay, that's perfect. So before we wrap up, are there any last pieces of wisdom you'd like to give to our listeners listening today?
I kind of like doing this thing where like there's like kind of this idea where it's like if you chase something like it runs away from you, so I would say really be confident in yourself. Do not like lose sleep, be so worried about the college applications or be like really chasing one school and being so scared about that one school because it might just like metaphorically run away from you. You need to have a level of confidence and serenity with yourself that you can continue to work effectively and productively. Being worried and like cramming yourself into a corner, it just like it doesn't really give you anything. Like why not just be happy and be calm and get those things rather than be worried and get those things, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you so much. We really enjoyed hearing your advice today. So have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.